All right, welcome everyone back to the Data Resilience SpectrumCast. As you can see, we have a new guest on the show, but as always, let's welcome back Randy Arsenault. Randy, my co-host. Hey, Randy.
Howdy.
And
Happy holidays, Paul.
Oh, very good. And Trisha and Sean, our subject matter experts. Hey, guys.
Hello, Steve.
There we go. And then today we have Alex Martin, all the way from across the pond, as they say. Good morning, Alex. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thanks, and thanks for having me.
Great. Hey, why don't you just introduce yourself a bit and tell us what you do?
Hey, so I'm Alex Martin. I work for a team in IBM called the Client Storage Assessment Team. What I do for a job is basically backup and storage analytics. So what I get up to kind of on a day-to-day, I do a bit of development, a bit of solution design, and a bit of probably everything in between the two, from talking to people and coming and doing things like this today.
Oh, great. Thanks for joining us. As you know, folks, we talk about data resilience, end to end all the time. And it's great to have Alex here with his expert set of knowledge. And what I like about this is, as Alex mentioned, we're going to talk about the CSAs, as they're called here at IBM. So if you hear the term client storage assessment or CSA, that's what we're talking about. Alex, doing these client storage assessments, you say you do a lot of analytics. Can you just briefly tell us kind of what that kind of encompasses? Because I think a lot of people would love to understand probably that insight that they probably would like to have about their data resilience environment. And I'm sure you see some of that, right?
Yeah. So all the stuff that we actually work on is kind of like data driven. So it's all based around us gathering either from a kind of a point in time perspective based on what's there at the moment, or actually a kind of over time view. So say if you have some monitoring in place, we can kind of pull from that too. And if you wanted to kind of like peek behind the curtain, so to say, or what actually happens when it comes back to us, we take all that data and we turn it into something a machine can work with more easily. So think your CSV, your XMLs, and then we actually have a whole load of Python that then does the analytics for seeing actually say what is that kind of change rate over time, or what does that growth look like, and actually puts it into a format that's kind of visual, so you can see it and interpret it as a human, because sometimes these data sets are huge and you as a human you really can't get through it. But if you put it into a nice graph or a nice table, or just something that you can be consumed, and we generally kick that then back out so that people can see it either via a bit of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, either offline or online, depending on the type of report we're putting together.
So do you see, I would imagine in the course of doing these, you surprise the clients sometimes with things that are uncovered that they maybe didn't anticipate or didn't realize were happening in their environment. Is that a common thing?
Yeah, definitely, especially in some of the especially some of the larger environments that maybe have gone through some sort of recent mergers and acquisitions, and maybe they don't actually know everything there is to know about all of their own environment as well. Same thing applies to kind of managed service providers. But when you do kind of get it all together and you start at kind of the summary view where everything's on kind of that big picture view of what people have got, you get all sorts of confessions of people going, oh, actually, yeah, we do have that. Oh, actually, no, you forgot this. You need to get this too. And it all starts to come out of the woodwork.
It's funny. It's like an interrogation, like a storage interrogation.
Where in the sales cycle or customer life cycle is this used?
So the client storage assessments represent actually like a group of different things that we get up to. Some of them are based around transformation. So actually you want to change from where you are today to something else, or actually trying to see just what IBM technology can do for you. That's kind of our transformation branch. We have the health branch, which is focused on kind of the kind of operation, configuration, performance of what you've got deployed at the moment. And that's more kind of product specific. And then we have some other kind of more kind of metadata understanding kind of things that we do for people that are, say, running cloud environments. And some of the stuff we're working on is actually now more geared towards kind of container environments. But the main two are the transformation and health.
So how do I sign up for this, Alex? I mean, is this something we do for free, or do you charge for this, or?
So that could be the tooltip there, Sean.
Yeah, that would be the
tooltip. Answer the tooltip there.
Whoa, you're pulling the trigger pretty quick on the tooltip, Trisha. Let's slow down a little bit.
Hey, give people usable knowledge here, Randy.
I know.
So what we'll do is we'll stick a link in the description so you know where to go to come and look at and see kind of what we do. On there, you'll have like an email address of who you can kind of get in contact if you want to talk to one of us, or you can just go and chat to your friendly IBM representative, whoever that may be, and I'm sure they'll point you in the right direction.
And I mean, what kind of investment and time is required on my part for this, or on the customer's part for this? I mean, is this a very time consuming thing? Do you have to talk to like 50 people in my organization, or how does it generally work?
And maybe Alex, before you answer that, maybe you pony on the back of that. How would you get started, and then carry that through to, okay, then what's the process look like as far as what Sean was just asking about?
Okay. So I just realized I actually missed a bit off that last question as well. So to add on to that, it's IBM funded at the moment. So from a raw dollars exchanging hands point of view, IBM's the one picking up the bill, which is always nice to hear. And then
free is good. Always good.
Exactly. And then I think the next following from that, it was what's the kind of investment of time? Because obviously time is money at the end of the day. And we actually have worked quite hard to make our tooling and tool set as simple as possible. So we have a script-based approach if that's the way you want to work. But most people actually tend to go for our kind of Windows wizard of clicking next through a whole bunch of windows and hitting go. So we keep it as simple as possible. It can run from anywhere. If you're going to look at like the lightweight sort of stuff that we do with the transformation report, that maybe is in the range of kind of like the 10 minutes. If you want to run a kind of more detailed kind of maybe the Spectrum Protect health check report, say, that could be like an hour to sit and run. But what actually tends to happen is in the morning, you hit go, and then you carry on your day as normal. And then sometime in the afternoon, you come back to it and send IBM some data. So it's not so difficult. Now, I think, Steve, you said you want me to kind of bounce into the kind of process that we follow.
Sure.
So what will happen is after you kind of had a chat with your IBM representative, you'll get sent to you a list of instructions. It basically just tells you how to kind of log on to our website. There's a download button, one of very few buttons on the page where you can click and it will download our data collection toolkit. In there's everything you need. So you're not going to be going around looking in other places. There's a guidebook that will take you through kind of exactly what you need to click on if you want to. If you've done one of these before or feel like you're probably going to get it, you can open up our data collector straight away and click through it, or just transfer the scripts to where it needs to be to run. It's worth mentioning we're a multi-vendor outfit probably at this stage. So the stuff that we work with isn't just IBM. We have some product-specific things, like I said a second ago, with the Spectrum Protect health check. Well, actually, it could be any of a number of vendors if you're actually looking to see actually what kind of IBM technology can do for you.
So when you say multiple vendors, like we're recommending people go out there and use AWS and Azure and things like that, or?
So from understanding what you've got at the moment, you could have a blend of things. You could be a bit of IBM, it could be a bit of maybe IBM Cloud, a bit of Azure, a bit of AWS. You could have a whole host of different things in reality on the floor at the moment. And going forwards from that, you want to see kind of how the IBM technology piece fits into it. So that isn't always tin on the ground. So maybe you actually want to know actually what can, say, storage virtualization or Spectrum Virtualize do for me in my AWS environment. Or maybe you want to know what that looks like as almost like a hybrid model going forwards, because actually not everything's going to the cloud, got a bit staying on-prem. We come across every which way you can imagine cutting it sort of thing. But because we can work multi-vendor, it means that it's just a bit more real, I guess, from a day-to-day point of view.
Yep.
So what kind of questions is this going to answer? Is it going to help me understand if my backup is correctly sized, or if what you said Spectrum Virtualize is going to do for me? What am I going to get out of this?
We'll sit with the two main branches of what we do. They have kind of almost two different purposes. So from a transformation point of view, and that covers both backup and storage, it is what can I do with IBM technology going forwards. So we project forwards 3 years based on the data we gather to see kind of what we think that's going to look like over that time. If you think you're going to need something new or different or change over that, we can incorporate that. And you end up then with a nice, just big picture of actually what we think that's going to look like going forwards. So it's about actually just seeing kind of where that's going to go. But if I look then, say, to our health check branch, which is the other branch, that's all around kind of the operation, configuration, and performance of what you've got. So say if we'll take Spectrum Protect, because a relevant one to us, and that's one we have our offering for. We could be looking to see how you maybe how, if you were to modernize that, what maybe that might look like, because you can see what the speeds are, the feeds are, and what that may be. And it also allows us to see, actually, are there some configuration settings that don't make sense? So maybe you're keeping your extents for longer than your backup of the database itself, or vice versa. And there's a mismatch there. And it kind of picks up on those sorts of things and flags them up. We use like a traffic light system, red, amber, green way of doing that. So it's nice and easy for people.
So it seems like that would be really useful both for kind of developing and refining policies for data protection and movement and archive, et cetera, but also potentially even feeding back into the product development teams, right? So if they're looking for patterns of usage or, potential vulnerabilities or opportunities that they can exploit, it seems like this would be a really good kind of source of input for them as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it does end up being it as well. So the way that the kind of Spectrum Protect health check is working and kind of getting better at the moment is actually we pull in the information that the actual developers put out as one thing, which is the Spectrum Protect blueprints. I'm sure you guys know what a blueprint is, but if anyone's listening who doesn't, it's like a best practice document that our developers release. And that has a whole load of like how you should set things up or how you could set things up to be optimal. So we pull in a load of stuff from there. We actually also then take on board all the stuff that we get fed back into us from our kind of client success managers. We actually have the technical guys in the field that go out there, and they all feed back into us kind of what good looks like and what other environments we've seen. And we kind of build up slowly over time a better picture. And that's how we form our opinion, is actually, this is what IBM thinks it maybe should be. And that gives the customer that kind of independent view as, this is what IBM thinks, and maybe it's not for them, but that's a different view. Having an opinion is always good, even if they go, actually, we want to do it this way, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, when you can base those opinions on empirical data, that's always going to be more useful, I think.
You know, one of the things we find, I was just going to say, one of the things we find in the Spectrum Protect world, and it's almost a blessing and a curse in many ways, is Spectrum Protect tends to work pretty well, and people will set it up 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and really not think about modernization, right? And then they come to this point where, oh my goodness, maybe there's all of this other stuff out there in the world that we could do to make this work much better. And so I think a report like this could really help people kind of take a look at what they have done in the past and maybe move it into that more modern type of configuration where they're including a lot of the newer features that have come into the stage with regard to backup and restore.
So as a customer, am I going to be able to look at this and understand it, or do I have to have you come in, or my salesperson come in, or my technical sales? How does that work?
So the way that it typically works is we will set up a session and we'll present back actually what the report is and what it contains. There's a recording of me doing it in only like a couple of minutes that you could grab if you wanted to kind of see what one of those look like. But typically we'll come and present it back. And what we'll do is we'll pick out the kind of the amber and the red points, so the stuff that's kind of the most critical, and we'll talk a bit about those. But after that process, we then just hand that whole report kind of over, and then you can run with it and do what you like. And there's normally a whole load more that flags up that we kind of don't talk about in that session. Just from a timing point of view, you could talk about someone's environment kind of all day. Well, I could clearly. It's kind of what I do. But we hand it back over to them so they can kind of do it at their leisure and go from there.
So Alex, I think you said this, but I just want to make sure that the audience knows, right? When I do this this test, this health check, or this storage assessment, it works not only for IBM storage or IBM data protection solutions, but it also captures information from some of the other technologies like NetBackup or Veeam or whatever, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So as I said, we've got a couple of different branches almost of what we do. So within that transformation branch, that's absolutely multi-vendor. So that could be NetBackup, Veeam, Avamar. And actually, even when we do some of the health checks as well, we're actually going to we pull things in from like your, say, your data domains or your VTLs to see kind of what they look like as well. So actually, we can look at both backup and storage at the same time. And with that, then help you see kind of what that might look like kind of going forwards. But we have two kind of distinct branches around what we do from a transformation and health point of view.
I think that's a huge value proposition because as we know, I mean, I can't think of a customer I've talked to that hasn't had at least two, if not more, protection products in their environment, right? So as you say, you're going through this transformation or modernization, and you're thinking about, okay, let me take a snapshot of what do I have in place? How is it working out for me? Am I meeting my objectives? And then how do I want to think about, because as you said, you kind of do some predictive analysis there. How do I think about what the future holds for me, and kind of what should my strategy be? I think it's a very useful tool.
Well, and as environments and infrastructures get more complicated and there's more layers of abstraction and hybrid multi-cloud, flying blind becomes riskier, right? There's more vulnerability, not just from a security standpoint, but from a performance and availability standpoint, and also getting blindsided by capacity growth. There's all kinds of things that I think become a lot more challenging as your environment becomes more complex and spread out more widely. So instrumentation like this is a great way to kind of have the headlights on, where you are and where you're trending. So very cool.
Alex, give us some thoughts. Do you do a lot of these? Not you specifically, but does IBM do a lot of these for customers?
Yeah, an awful lot. So I think we're in the 4 figures for Spectrum Protect servers analyzed this year. Then for the transformation, probably in the kind of hundreds, I'd probably say, if for these all triple figures. So we've done an awful lot, but that's just this year. So if you were to look backwards, it ends up adding up to an awful lot of different types of environments and things we've assessed. And obviously within a single environment, I can say I've assessed just one environment, but that one environment could also be very, very large or very small. We actually work with kind of both the, pretty vast estates with kind of multiple data centers split off across kind of the globe. We also do, a single server in a single room, and again, it ends up applying to both. But what we've tended to find is that some of our assessments are actually springboarding into one another. So I know Sean mentioned it a minute ago around actually people are saying they've had this Spectrum Protect thing. It's been in there for years and years, and it's been doing really good, but they've never really thought about what it looked like in kind of the modern day. Now that comes up, as you'd imagine, an awful lot for kind of one of the things that we do. But when they start doing that and actually start looking at that modernization, you end up with a lot of people going, "Oh, we didn't know you could do this backup thing in the cloud for us at all. Oh, no, we didn't really know what cyber resiliency features that you have." So we actually tend to find that we're actually now partnering with some of our other types of assessment. Say, for example, the cyber resiliency assessment tool, which is another one in the branch of things that IBM gets up to actually show them what storage and backup can do in those spaces.
Alex, in all the ones you've been exposed to, which I'm sure is a lot, anything come up that's fairly common that you would share that says, one thing that we tend to see quite frequently is XYZ, and give clients something to think about?
A lot of the time, it depends on which of these we're talking about, because they're all quite distinctly different from different things. So I'll try and kind of jump through them from kind of a one by one. So if we talk about, say, the transformation report for backup, the absolute classic there is always people relying on hardware appliances to do their data reduction and replication. But because Spectrum Protect is actually built a little bit almost differently to, say, your kind of your net backups and actually other products, it actually has that at the application layer. So you don't actually need to have that expensive VTL, say, for storing your backup data. You actually can do that via using Spectrum Protect to do your data reduction, and then your kind of storage underneath. If you were to think about, say, the storage piece, say, I always find that people are always surprised to think about things like how that kind of storage virtualization can be used to kind of sweat their existing assets for like the things like SVC. I'm trying to say in general terms that you don't have to be a product expert in IBM, but yeah, so the storage virtualization piece, people tend to be quite surprised for seeing actually kind of what you can do there with that, as well as from a kind of on-premise and in the kind of in the cloud point of view at the moment. And then on the kind of health side of things, what people just really, really like there is having all of their kind of Spectrum Protect data out there, visualized, able to see kind of exactly kind of what someone's going up to. But then again, what they can then do to make it better and more modern. As I said, Spectrum Protect it's been around and doing almost too good a job in some cases, because it does get left, and actually showing them what they're up to is pretty pretty good for people. So they're probably the top three, the top one, I suppose, or two for each of the different types of stuff we get up to.
Any thing come up in the past that you saw in the report that was just like, whoa, like something either really funny or really strange or really like something you just left you scratching your head?
I mean, the ones that entertain me are when you're working and things just it's the coming out of the woodwork type thing. It is like, I always call it like an amnesty. So sometimes people, I think they have amnesties. I don't know if they do it in the US, maybe for guns or maybe for knives and things, where people start handing in all these things. It's almost like an IT amnesty where all of your kind of shadow IT starts to kind of come out of the woodwork and go, oh, we've got this, and oh no, we have this cloud account here. Oh, we've got this. Yeah. So yeah, and it's when you're on there and you see the other guys you're chatting to whose faces kind of start to scratch their heads and go, actually, this is not what we expected, but it's good. It gets it all out there at least. So
yeah, I like the idea of the amnesty program. It's like, all right, look, you take that environment down, I'll give you 24 hours.
All your departments, you report up to let me know what you're doing. You got 24 hours.
That's actually a great outcome from it.
It really is.
Kind of strange, funny, but it's a great outcome. So.
Well, it is. I mean, shadow IT is a thing, right? And the bigger the organization and the more complex it is, the more likely it is to be, widespread. And, there's risk associated with it. There's cost, disruption. So it's an important thing to understand and uncover.
There's benefits associated with it too, right?
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
Decentralized to some extent will provide a lot more innovation than maybe any kind of central, right? The truth is somewhere in the middle. And we've seen both ends of the spectrum, I'm sure, right? Where, the centralized aspects of it are totally in control and things are bad, or all the Indians are off the reservation, to use the American term, right? And there's nobody in charge.
Total free for all. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Alex, this has been super helpful and pointed out some things that I didn't even understand. So thanks for kind of outlining some of this stuff. Anything around them that you don't think we covered that you might want to tell our audience?
I'd really just say if it is something that interests you, I'm always happy for people to come find me, come have a chat. I like having this sort of informal chit chat with people. And if someone wants to reach out to me to have a chat, we'll try and schedule it, even if it's in the wrong time zone, and we'll work it out, I'm sure. So
like this, for example.
Yeah, exactly. But managed to get it here today. So no,
it's a powerful tool. I mean, it's, I don't think, speaking for myself, I don't think we highlight it often enough. I mean, it's a really, really valuable set of tooling that clients benefit from, for sure.
Cool. So every week we try to take a spin on Randy's wheel of misfortune, but earlier today, Sean came across something pretty interesting that is actually he's fairly passionate about. Or as most of you know, when Sean goes on vacation, he loves to go to Disney World. He's just a kid at heart. So Sean, why don't you tell us what came up today?
Well, I mean, I've been following this AWS outage, as we all have that occurred yesterday, and I just find it fascinating the breadth and width of people that were affected by this AWS outage. Everything from IT vendors and business news programs, and it turns out one of the big people that were affected was Disney World, right? A lot of people,
it was not the happiest place on earth for at least a day on Tuesday. That's right.
I mean, people were trying to make their orders for food using their cell phones, and they couldn't get them. They couldn't get onto the lines. They lost their reservations in the queue to get in the parks. And so, I mean, the monetary,
it was a nightmare, according to a Facebook user. Yes.
I told Steve earlier, I would be really mad if my reservation on Remy's Ratatouille Adventure was canceled and I couldn't get on the line. I mean, I'd be up in arms and demanding a refund.
Absolutely. I mean, this one does hit a little too close to home. We had to do a trigger warning for Sean, but this is.
I mean,
heavy.
The point is, I mean, this is really, seriously, this is an argument for a multi-cloud, multi-vendor.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And understanding also that when you quote, use the cloud, you're not outsourcing your responsibility for this kind of thing. Because I'm sure, I mean, if I was a CEO of Disney, Bob Chapek, I mean, I would be seriously on the phone renegotiating every contract I had with AWS, right? Because I bet you the losses here were in the millions. So it's going to be interesting to see the fallout. It's going to be interesting to see if this moves people a little bit back toward this. Let's not rely on one vendor. Let's not rely on the cloud totally, but let's spread some of these resources.
And I mean,
out.
like, as you said, Sean, it wasn't just Disney. It was Venmo, Amazon Kindle service, Roku, Disney Plus streaming. So it was a widespread, impact. It wasn't just the actual resorts.
Well,
So,
it was Amazon themselves, because I have a friend who works for Amazon, and she said it was chaos in the stores because of this.
And they couldn't deliver packages. Yeah.
And it's like Whole Foods and everybody else who relies on Amazon, same thing.
And just for my clarification, Sean, you said you've been following this. This was not a ransom attack, right? This was just an outage. I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
Nobody knows, right?
Well, that's a good point. It very well may have been a ransomware attack. We would never know if it was, but
right. This is all hidden, right? I mean, you're literally outsourcing your control of your IT infrastructure to AWS, Azure, or these other vendors.
If next week we see Bezos like packing up one of his rockets and shipping it to Russia, then we'll know. But
but they have not said what the root cause yet.
And Sean, you brought up something pretty interesting about changing your policies and your practices around cloud in your environment. And I just wanted to highlight and point out, I don't know how many folks know about Wikibon or SiliconANGLE. Dave Vellante just got back from AWS reInvent, and he did an outstanding summary of that. And moreover, it wasn't just a summary of reInvent. It was more what was the big outcome or the big takeaway? And he talked about something about superclouds, and superclouds being this conglomeration of when you're in your environment, layering different cloud applications on different other cloud platforms in order to be able to kind of spread out that risk that you just talked about, right? And I thought it was an outstanding piece, and I'll put a link in below also so that folks can take a look, and Randy has it up here as well. But it was a really good piece, and again, 25 minutes. It was very interesting, and I do predict, especially based on what just happened, that could be a thing of the future, right? Or not could be, it will be a thing of the future as people do want to spread out their risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's pushing, to Sean's point, to the sort of abrogation of responsibility. It's going to force the Apex providers and the Apex, public clouds to collaborate, and they're going to have to be able to offer some kind of a collaborative failover strategy or some way that they can provide that level, because consumers are going to demand it. I mean, this is just one among many examples of where that's going to become mission critical. So it's kind of cool.
Cool. Well, I want to thank Alex very, very much for coming on. Thanks again, Alex. I appreciate your time, and I do think the CSAs are super important, and I hope more folks take advantage of it. And then, as Randy said on the onset, happy holidays to everyone. We have one more episode coming up before the end of the year. It will be a little bit of a surprise. And Tricia, Sean, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.